Look, I don't know if it's just me, so I'm gonna say it out loud and I'm gonna let you guys tell me in the comments below, right? But I feel like Shadow Generations has unintentionally laid down some amazing groundwork for what could potentially be a new Sonic Rush game. Hear me out. Now, if you're clicking on this video, I'm assuming you already know about Shadow Generations, but just in case you don't, essentially Shadow Generations is a shadow version of Sonic Generations. And if you don't know what Sonic Generations is, alright.
Oh my god!
Sonic Generations is a Sonic anniversary game that came out in 2011 to celebrate the history of Sonic up until that point. You play as both modern and classic Sonic and play both modern and classic renditions of 9 stages from Sonic's past. Alright, you got that? Now Shadow Generations is included in a recent remaster of Sonic Generations, Sonic X Shadow Generations. And the Shadow Generations portion, you essentially do the same kind of thing, but it's with shadow levels and it goes over his story and his past. Alright, you guys got that? Cool. Now the thing about Shadow Generations is there is no classic Shadow. So what do you do in both acts? Act 1 is a more 3D fully focused stage. You know, you're mainly in 3D for the most part. I'm pretty sure 90% of it is in 3D. I don't know, don't quote me on that. But most of it is in 3D. You go through, you race through the stages as you'd expect in a modern boost level. Now the Act 2 levels are more fully focused on giving a 2D platforming experience, and I don't know how much of this comes down to whether they really wanted to do it this way or whether they wanted to save time on making the game. But either way, if you look deeply and closely behind the design philosophy of these 2D Shadow Generation stages, I think we actually find a design that works and probably creates the most enjoyable modern 2D experience. Now from my personal experience of playing the game, you guys let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I personally found it to be quite enjoyable. There was multiple different pathways you could take even in 2D with varying skill levels. And of course the classic, if you're higher skilled, you get to the higher route. If you don't quite have the skills, you end up falling down to the lower routes. But you can still make it back up. And there were so many parts of it that were based on your timing, how well you're able to time your jumps, knowing what's coming next and being able to act on it appropriately. I think what also helps it feel a bit more intuitive is you get a lot of moments where the view is more 2.5D than 2D, and I think it just makes it feel more intense. It makes it feel more, not necessarily feel so restricted in 2D as it actually is. And while Shadow Gens does have a bit more of an emphasis on the 2D platforming, I feel like its general gameplay sets a really good foundation for what a future Sonic Rush game could look like. I say this because it seems to still kind of have a similar design philosophy in the sense of you are meant to boost through these stages. Like Shadow Gens is not a game where you take your time going from place to place platforming. Like you are meant to boost through as quick as possible and optimize your routes, hitting the springs, hitting the enemies, going through the red rings. That's what you're supposed to do. And this is very, very similar to Sonic Rush. I mean, look at Sonic Rush gameplay. Most of what you're doing is just boosting through the stage, and if you know where things are, you optimize by ducking and dodging and jumping and hitting springs at the right time and hitting the grind rails and knowing where you're gonna land after you do a big jump and you can't see what's next on screen. The only thing that's really missing from Shadow Gens is the trick system. And if they had the trick system where you do tricks after you hit a spring or whatever to fill up your boost gauge, that would be basically Sonic Rush. And I think it also helps too, because at its core, Sonic Rush is a DS game. It used both screens and you'd go up and down between them. Now obviously you don't have that in Shadow Generations, but I feel like it still gives you that same feeling of, you know, going up and going down. And it's the type of game that doesn't need a specific platform to be on. You can play this on PC, you can play this on PS5, you can play this on Switch, which is probably where it would get a lot more sales. I think getting a Sonic Rush port at this point, or getting some kind of follow-up that is in the traditional style of Sonic Rush, is highly unlikely at this point. I mean, we don't have any dual screen consoles anymore, so that kind of gimmick would have to go out the window. But I really do think they could take this style that they've established for Shadow Generations, the Act 2s, and they could make it something that resembles the series and takes it to a new stage, something that can bring it back almost. I do want to say though, just imagine presentation-wise how good a Sonic Rush game would look in Hedgehog Engine 2. Just imagine. You see the environments in Shadow Gens, they look so good. This is the highest quality that we've had since Unleashed. And honestly, I think it looks better than Unleashed. I know some people will debate, but I think honestly, representing the Sonic environments, Shadow Generations does a better job. Obviously Sonic Unleashed is more realistic, and with Shadow Gens, a lot of the stages are based on more realism. Like the Ark looks like actual space, Kingdom Valley looks like actual castle. You know, you got Sunset Heights, which is like a regular street. So we don't get more of like the cartoony kind of looking levels that you get in Sonic Rush, like with Leaf Storm, etc. But honestly, I think the environments would look so good. That would be the most beautiful 2D Sonic game. And in terms of music-wise, I'm not the biggest fan of the direction it's currently in. Some of these remixes were just not really it for me, which is a shame because in the original Sonic generations, I loved almost every single remix. You know, you had the more rock style for the Act 2s with Sonic, but then you had the more like classic-y kind of Genesis Offspring styles for classic Sonic, which really worked then. I don't know what's going on with Forces and stuff, but back then it really worked. But honestly, I think I, alongside everyone else, would just like to see Hideki Naganuma get another crack at the soundtrack. I think he would do a phenomenal job. And in terms of bringing the trick system back, I mean, just look at some of the animations from Shadow Gens. Like when he jumps off certain things, does flips. There's that one section in Kingdom Valley, I know it's in 3D, but where he does like a flip. And you can see that the animation team is really getting to grips with using these 3D models. They could make some really cool trick animations, honestly. Now, just to wrap things up, I do believe that Sonic Team is really doing their best at giving the fans everything that they want. You can see they're trying to diversify and try different new gameplay styles. Like we had the classic Sonic style continuing with Sonic Superstars. We got Fall Guys style coming with Sonic Rumble. And now Shadow Gens is really them apexing on the boost formula and also the open hub world. And I really believe in the next year or two, it's time to really have another crack at that Rush style. And using this Shadow Generations Act 2s as a base, they can make some really fire material. I honestly, truly believe it. Now let me know in the comment section, do you guys agree? Or do you think I'm kind of waffling? Just let me know. Also, make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed this. I'm going to be talking about so much Shadow Gens and also just other stuff in general. Sonic, gaming, you know, just whatever I feel like. So if you had fun, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and yeah, we'll be back another time. Peace!